the ocean floor remains one of the least mapped surfaces on our planet. By most estimates, we have higher resolution maps of Mars and the Moon than of our own seabeds. Less than a quarter of the seafloor has been mapped in real detail, and only a fraction of that has ever been visited by a camera, a submersible, or a human being. That gap between what we've charted and what's actually down there is where these stories live. Some of what follows is backed by solid, peer-reviewed research. Some is a genuinely open question that scientists are still actively working on. And some is folklore, misidentification, or speculation dressed up as mystery by decades of retelling. Part of what makes ocean science compelling is being honest about which is which, so that's the approach here, topic by topic. The Baltic Sea Anomaly. In 2011, a Swedish salvage team called Ocean X was searching the Baltic Sea for shipwrecks when their sonar picked up a large, disc-shaped formation roughly 85 feet down, about 200 feet wide. Its rounded outline and stair-step features made for dramatic sonar images, and the story spread quickly online, with comparisons to UFOs and sunken structures. The mainstream geological explanation is straightforward. This region was scoured by glaciers during the last ice age, and glacial deposits regularly produce unusual, blocky rock formations that can look geometric in low-resolution sonar. Independent geologists who reviewed the data generally support a natural origin, likely a glacial or basalt formation. Claims about equipment failing near the site or metallic textures come only from the divers' own accounts and have not been independently verified. No major follow-up scientific expedition has published peer-reviewed findings on the site, so it remains, officially, unclassified rather than unexplained in any exotic sense. The Yonaguni Monument. Off Japan's Ryukyu Islands, divers in 1986 found a huge underwater rock formation with flat terraces, sharp angles, and step-like ledges, an appearance that struck many as architectural. Some researchers, notably marine geologist Masaki Kimura, have argued it could be a human-made structure, possibly connected to a settlement submerged after sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age. Most geologists disagree. The region sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where sandstone naturally fractures along straight, regular fault lines, which can produce terraces and right angles without any human involvement. No tools, pottery, or other artifacts have been recovered at the site, the kind of evidence you'd typically expect near an ancient settlement. The debate isn't fully settled, but the natural erosion explanation currently has stronger support in the geological community. The Milky Sea effect. Sailors have described glowing white-blue seas for centuries, but the phenomenon wasn't scientifically confirmed until 2005, when satellite imagery captured a glowing patch of ocean off Somalia roughly the size of Connecticut, matching an eyewitness account from a nearby ship's crew. The leading explanation involves bioluminescent bacteria, likely Vibrio harvey, that can form enormous blooms under calm, nutrient-rich conditions and emit a steady glow, possibly as a form of chemical signaling among the bacteria. No research vessel has ever sampled a Milky Sea event while it was actively happening. So many details of how these blooms form and coordinate over such vast areas remain genuinely open research questions. Not evidence of anything beyond microbiology we don't yet fully understand. The Challenger Deep. At nearly 36,000 feet, the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench is the deepest known point in any ocean, with pressure over 1,000 times that at sea level. Despite conditions once assumed to be lifeless, expeditions from the 1960 Trieste dive to James Cameron's 2012 solo descent have found amphipods, single-celled xenophyophores, and microbial life adapted to total darkness and crushing pressure. Less than 5% of the trench has been closely studied, so new species turn up regularly. That's a genuine and exciting scientific frontier. At this depth, the pressure is so extreme that specialized equipment is required just to keep instruments from being crushed, which is part of why so few crude descents have ever happened. Trieste in 1960 and Cameron's dive in 2012 remain two of only a small handful. Claims about hidden ruins or unknown leviathans in the trench are unsupported speculation, not findings from any research program, however tempting they are to imagine given how little of the trench we've actually seen. Underwater brine pools. In the Gulf of Mexico and parts of the Red Sea, pockets of ancient salt deposits have dissolved into seawater to form extremely dense brine pools that sit on the seafloor like lakes within the ocean, complete with visible shorelines and ripples on their surface. The brine is toxic to most marine life. A well-studied pool nicknamed the Jacuzzi of Despair can kill crabs and other creatures that wander in within minutes, preserving their bodies in the near-sterile, low-oxygen brine. Yet microbial life thrives at the edges, using chemosynthesis, drawing energy from methane and sulfur compounds instead of sunlight. These pools are a legitimate window into how life might survive in extreme, sunless environments, including possibly on icy moons like Europa. That scientific parallel doesn't require any embellishment to be genuinely fascinating. Undersea volcanoes. Roughly 3/4 of Earth's volcanic activity happens underwater, and most of it goes completely unobserved. In 2012, an unmapped volcano near New Zealand, later identified as Havre Seamount, erupted with enough force to release a floating raft of pumice the size of a small country, visible from satellites, before anyone had even located its source. Underwater eruptions are usually inferred after the fact from temperature shifts or chemical traces rather than observed directly, which means our catalog of undersea volcanic activity is almost certainly incomplete. That's a real gap in our knowledge, not evidence of anything supernatural, just a reminder of how much of this activity happens somewhere we simply aren't watching. Mysterious ocean sounds, the Bloop, Julia, and the Upsweep. In 1997, NOAA hydrophones picked up an extremely loud, low-frequency sound nicknamed the Bloop, audible across thousands of miles of the Pacific. For years it fueled speculation about an unknown giant creature. The now widely accepted explanation is icequake activity, large Antarctic ice masses cracking and grinding, which produces exactly this kind of powerful, low-frequency signature. Most acoustic scientists now consider the case closed, even though the sound's precise tonal qualities took time to match to ice behavior. Julia, recorded in 1999, and the Upsweep, first detected in 1991 and still occurring today, are less conclusively explained. Both are generally attributed to a mix of icequakes and undersea volcanic or geothermal activity, though researchers haven't pinned down an exact source for either with full certainty. These remain open questions in bioacoustics and marine geology, genuinely unresolved, but almost certainly explainable through ordinary geological processes we simply haven't fully mapped yet. The colossal squid. Mesonichotuthis hamiltoni is the heaviest invertebrate known to science, potentially reaching 14 meters with the largest eyes of any animal on record, useful for detecting faint bioluminescence in total darkness. It wasn't formally identified until 1925, and to this day no scientist has filmed one alive in its natural habitat. Nearly everything we know comes from carcasses and scars found on sperm whales. Its full life cycle, hunting behavior, and population remain unknown, a real and acknowledged gap in marine biology, not because the animal is otherworldly, but because the deep sea is simply that difficult to observe directly. The giant oarfish. The world's longest bony fish, reaching over 11 meters, oarfish live between 200 and 1,000 meters down and are rarely seen alive. Most sightings come from carcasses that wash ashore. In Japanese folklore, they're associated with impending earthquakes, and a few strandings did precede seismic events in 2010 and 2013. Marine biologists are clear, however, that there's no established biological mechanism linking oarfish behavior to seismic activity, and no controlled study has found a reliable correlation. The folklore connection remains an interesting cultural pattern rather than a predictive one. Black smokers and the origin of life. Discovered in 1979, hydrothermal vents called black smokers release mineral-rich water as hot as 400 degrees C, supporting entire ecosystems, tube worms, blind shrimp, ghostly crabs, that live via chemosynthesis rather than sunlight. This discovery upended the old assumption that all life on Earth ultimately depends on the sun, and many researchers now consider vent-like environments a strong candidate for where life on Earth actually began. They're also studied as models for what life might look like on ice-covered moons like Europa or Enceladus, where tidal heating could plausibly drive similar vent systems beneath miles of ice. Vent fields tend to be short-lived on geological timescales, often lasting only a few decades before they cool and collapse, and the communities around them collapse with them. Yet species reliably colonize newly formed vents elsewhere, a migration pattern researchers are still working to fully explain. This is one of the better established, most consequential findings in this entire list, and arguably didn't need any exaggeration to change how biologists think about where life can exist. Deep-sea bioluminescence. More than 3/4 of deep-sea organisms are believed to produce their own light, using it to hunt, camouflage, communicate, or startle predators. Anglerfish lures, hatchetfish counterillumination, and squid with built-in bacterial flashlights are all documented and well-studied adaptations. Occasional reports of unexplained flashes or large-scale, blink storms in very deep water are real but rare observations that haven't been matched to a known species yet. An active area of research, not evidence of anything beyond biology we haven't fully cataloged. The vampire squid, barrel-eye fish, and frilled shark. A few deep-sea species deserve mention simply for how strange and well-documented they are. The vampire squid survives on marine snow rather than hunting, and defends itself by turning inside out to display spines and release a glowing decoy cloud. The barrel-eye fish has a transparent, fluid-filled head housing rotating tubular eyes that can point straight upward or forward. Footage of it alive wasn't captured until 2004. The frilled shark, sometimes called a living fossil, has changed little in tens of millions of years and moves with an eel-like side-to-side slither unlike any modern shark. All three are confirmed studied species. Their oddities are real biology, not mystery. Lost vessels. USS Scorpion, RA San Juan, and the SS Baychimo. Some of the ocean's most haunting stories involve real disappearances with incomplete official explanations. The USS Scorpion, a U.S. nuclear submarine, vanished in 1968. Its wreck was found 5 months later, but the Navy's investigation never settled on a definitive cause, with torpedo malfunction remaining the leading theory. The Argentine submarine RA San Juan disappeared in 2017. An acoustic event consistent with an implosion was detected within hours, and the wreck was located a year later, though questions about its maintenance history remain. The SS Baychimo, abandoned in Arctic ice in 1931, was spotted drifting, empty and intact, by various observers for nearly 4 decades before vanishing for good. An unusual but not impossible outcome given how well cold seawater can preserve a steel hull. These are documented historical events, not paranormal ones, and it's worth treating the loss of life involved with the seriousness it deserves. Atlantis and Pavlopetri. Atlantis originates entirely from 2 dialogues written by Plato around 360 BCE, and no archaeological evidence has ever confirmed it existed as he described. Most historians treat it as a philosophical allegory rather than a historical record, though some suggest the Bronze Age eruption on Santorini and the resulting collapse of Minoan society may have inspired the story. Pavlopetri, by contrast, is a real and extensively studied submerged Bronze Age city off the coast of Greece, dating back roughly 5,000 years, with visible streets, building foundations, and even a drainage system preserved on the shallow seafloor. It's a genuine window into an early planned coastal settlement, gradually submerged by rising sea levels and land subsidence. No myth required. Unidentified shipwrecks. An estimated fewer than 20% of the world's shipwrecks have been properly documented and identified. Most that go unidentified simply lack surviving records, corroded hull markings, no manifest, no distress call, rather than any deliberate concealment. Cold, low-oxygen environments like the Great Lakes and the Black Sea preserve wooden wrecks unusually well, which is why so many well-preserved mystery ships tend to be found there. It's a genuine gap in maritime history, filled in slowly through archival research and careful archaeology. Deep-sea gigantism. Some deep-sea animals grow far larger than their shallow-water relatives, giant isopods, Japanese spider crabs with a leg span over 3 meters, and the colossal squid among them. Proposed explanations include colder temperatures slowing metabolism while allowing longer growth periods, higher dissolved oxygen levels in cold water, and the advantage of storing more energy where food is scarce and unpredictable. No single theory explains every case, and that inconsistency is itself an open research question in evolutionary biology. Zombie worms. Discovered only in 2002, Ostax worms, nicknamed bone-eating worms, colonize whale skeletons on the seafloor, using symbiotic bacteria to break down and absorb lipids from bone. Females anchor to the bone and host microscopic males inside their bodies. Fossil evidence suggests related worms may have fed on marine reptile bones tens of millions of years ago. It's a legitimately strange and only recently understood ecological niche. Sea serpent sightings. Centuries of sailor reports describe long, undulating creatures at sea, including a well-documented 1848 sighting from officers aboard HMS Daedalus. Many sightings are now attributed to oarfish, misidentified whales, or large strands of kelp, and skeptics note that scale and shape are notoriously hard to judge at sea. A minority of accounts, including the Daedalus report, resist easy explanation, but resists easy explanation isn't the same as evidence of an undiscovered species. It's simply an unresolved historical account. The immortal jellyfish. Turritopsis doana is a real, well-studied jellyfish capable of reverting from its adult medusa stage back to its earliest polyp stage under stress, effectively resetting its biological age through a process called transdifferentiation. It's not invulnerable, it can still be eaten or killed, but its regenerative ability is a genuine and active area of research in regenerative medicine, with real, if early-stage, implications for how we understand cellular aging. Unexplained gelatinous forms near hydrothermal vents. Submersible footage near some hydrothermal vents has captured transparent, gelatinous masses that don't match any cataloged species, possibly egg sacs from deep-sea cephalopods, unclassified colonial organisms, or something not yet described. No specimen has been successfully recovered intact, since most dissolve or degrade before they can be collected. This is an honest scientific unknown, not evidence of anything beyond an unclassified organism. Underwater crab circles. Since the 1990s, divers off Japan have found large, geometric circular patterns etched into the sandy seafloor. In 2011, scientists solved the mystery. Male pufferfish carved these elaborate structures using only their fins, over days or weeks, to attract mates. The ridges help channel sand and current to protect and display eggs. It's one of the clearest examples in this list of something that looked mysterious turning out to have a wonderfully specific, confirmed explanation. The bottom line. The ocean floor really is one of the least explored places on Earth. That part isn't exaggeration. But most of what's covered here falls into one of 3 honest categories. Phenomena that are fully explained and simply underappreciated, bioluminescence, brine pools, black smokers. Phenomena that are partially explained with real open questions, the upsweep, deep-sea gigantism, vent blobs. And phenomena that are folklore or unverified reports worth treating with appropriate skepticism. Atlantis, sea serpents, the Baltic anomalies, more dramatic claims. Keeping those categories straight is what makes ocean science more interesting, not less. The real unknowns are strange enough on their own, and they don't need embellishment to earn their place in the story. So the next time someone tells you we know more about the surface of Mars than the floor of our own oceans, know that it's true, and that the honest version of that mystery is the one worth chasing. Not aliens or lost civilizations, but the very real, very large gaps in what marine science has actually confirmed so far. Gaps that new expeditions are closing a little more every